Don't ask me. I have no idea.
No, I know. It's fine. All right, let's see here. All right,
There we are.
I think we are live. So someone just say hello, or let me know if you guys can hear us, if the audio's okay.
We're lagging a little bit.
All right, we're live. So Corey's there. So happy Saturday, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well, and thank you for hanging out with us. I actually had a live stream planned for today where I was going to go through and answer a lot of frequently asked questions that a lot of you have on the channel as far as African cichlids and, you know, feeding fish and stuff like that. I knew Dean was in town because I picked him up from the airport a few days ago and he's taking care of some family matters here in town.
Right.
And he said he had some time today. So I said, well, just let's make it so that you can join the live stream. So here we are.
Yeah.
Welcome, Dean.
Thank you. Well, actually, it was again a pickup again today, right?
Yep, picked him up again.
Because I had to drop the wife's car off for service and had nowhere to go.
Yep. So he was just kind of bum around. I said, well, just come over and hang out with me, and we will do a little stream. So for those of you that are worried about any closeness, both of us have been vaccinated.
True. Yep.
He's had his shots. I've had my shots, and so that's why we're in the same room together without our masks on. So for those of you out there that are worried, we did make sure that it's safe to be around each other without masks on. So
and we do go out in public with our masks on. Still.
Yes. So definitely for those of you out there, be safe, take precautions, and just help everyone be safe for everybody. So instead of kind of the normal thing of, or what I had planned as far as asking, reading viewer questions and kind of going through that, since we have Dean here, I would love all of you to be able to ask some questions of someone that's really, really been experienced in the hobby for many, many years. So for those of you that don't know Dean, and I'm sure all of you know Dean, but if you don't know Dean, Dean is a master fish breeder. He has been in the fish hobby for
about 54 now.
54 years. So that's a few years longer than I've actually been alive. So that's a long time. And of course, you probably know him from the Aquarium Co-op channel, as well as he's often showcased on that channel with Corey, building the fish room out, breeding fish, etc. So maybe before we get into the chat and answer some questions, let's talk a little bit about the fish room. So for those of you that don't know, this fish room was actually built with Dean's hands. Corey was here, and Corey was helping to supervise the whole build and remodel. But
True.
Dean was the brains and the muscle behind the operation of building this fish room. So maybe we can talk a little bit about what you did. And
so actually, this is only the second time back.
That's right.
Right. So the first time back was literally right before COVID started.
Mm-hmm.
We're not supposed to say COVID, I know, but
it's
whatever.
Okay. Yeah, right before the pandemic.
Right before the pandemic started was the first time back, and Corey and I had been here for about a week, and we put the sound blankets up.
Mm-hmm.
You were working on moving tanks in and out. We were putting air behind the walls. We made you clean out the corner.
Yes.
That was my pet peeve, right?
Yeah.
And believe me, you guys can't really see that, but if Zenzo ever takes you over there with the camera, it's really cool because there's a sink back there now, storage. We put the dehumidifier back and that seems to be working because you got enough fans to circulate the air through here. So there's no heaters in every tank. My dream.
Yeah, no heaters.
No heaters in any tank.
Right.
And they're all, what, about 78 to 80?
Yeah, so the room stays about 80 degrees or so, give or take, depending on, you know, time of year and the weather outside. But so the tanks are usually about 78-ish.
Yeah, yeah.
80, depending on where they are in the room.
It works perfect. It's really good on sound.
Yeah, yeah.
I really like that.
Yeah, sound's been great down here. Thank you, Corey, for that one.
Yeah. And then, you know, some of the fish have changed. Some of them haven't. Those guys over there have obviously grown a bit. More spawns here. A lot more spawns back there. So yeah, it's really cool. The Oscar tank, I know you guys have watched his videos on when he changed that all up. But I never knew that you got the silver dollars in there, I guess. I didn't know that, so.
And I haven't showed them a lot on the channel, so maybe I'll make a video about them. But I wanted to get like a larger kind of dither fish in there.
Yep.
And
it's a perfect one too.
Yeah, they're kind of shy right now because we're actually
standing right in front of it.
We're using the tank as a stand for the camera and the computer and everything. So, what would you say is your favorite tank down here in this room?
Oh, still?
Yeah, still. I think last time it was the.
It still is.
The Indian mudskipper?
Well, okay, so you redid that African mudskipper.
Yeah, we redid the African tank.
So this tank is really cool, but I really like the size-wise of the Indian mudskippers. They're a little bit smaller.
Right.
It feels like something that someone could do in maybe a 20 long if they had to.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, 40 breeder is really cool.
Yeah.
I also like, what are we calling this tank over here?
That's my Molly / fiddler crab tank. So you guys can't see it. It's around the corner, but there's a 55-gallon brackish tank there that has like a shelf that we built into it. So the crabs can go on top, and all the mollies, obviously, which are, they excel in the brackish water because of the minerals. They're down below swimming around. So there's probably 35 to 40 gallons of water in there, and the rest of it's just land. So fun tank. It's
pretty cool. And the way he did the little shelf is really cool around PVC. There might be an old video on that too, right?
There's some videos on that tank, and it's been showcased on some of my fish room tours. So we got a super chat here from Bucket Boy from the UK. Says, hey, from London, what is your #1 favorite fish? So we'll start with Dean, the guest. What is your favorite fish?
Okay. What do you guess it is?
Discus.
Yes.
Is it?
Why?
Because you've collected them in the wild and you
I have collected them in the wild. I've bred them now, the wild caught ones. And, you know, to be honest, they were the second fish I ever kept.
Wow.
I mean, it was guppies.
The guppies were the one you kept in the toilet?
I kept them in the toilet.
Okay. We'll get to that story.
At first, I did keep them in the toilet. So, yeah, so I went from guppies when I was 7 to, you know, maybe 10 to 13 years. And guppies and discus were the second fish that I ever purchased. I mean, I might have purchased some corridors in between.
Right.
But discus were the second first fish I purchased. And it was all because of, I think, a 1960, I think it was a 1960 National Geographic article where discus were on the cover and there was fry eating from the sides. I just became fascinated.
Yeah. I have 2 discus. I haven't really gone down the whole discus road, but I've got some upstairs. Yeah. As far as my favorite fish, I would say that it is koi fish. Koi.
So the deck.
Yeah. So I've got a little pond on my deck, and I've one koi, and I love it. I don't film that pond very much, and it's just kind of like my own quiet place to hang out. I'll sit out there and watch the fish, and they'll kind of eat out of my hand. So I love koi. I know Corey has a lot of koi. I love koi fish. I've loved koi since I can remember. Fish Tank Barn got a super chat. It's just a tip, so thank you for putting some money in the tip jar there. So we're going to go through some questions here. If you write, just because I'm reading the chat, if you put @Tazawa Tanks, it'll be a little easier for me to read because it will show up in yellow. Or obviously, if you super chat, that will be shot up. So as I'm looking for some questions to ask, now that we've talked about your favorite fish tank, do you have a favorite fish down here?
Man,
or is it still
so many?
Because I know you want some of the fish that I have down here.
I probably don't know the scientific name, but the gold ocellatus. They're very cool.
Yep.
And I remember when we were doing the fish room, I mean, Zenzo's literally picking the tanks up, moving them out of the way, moving them back, you know, refilling them with water. And we're looking at that tank, and there was little dinky fry, just a few. And I'm like, well, I got to have some of those someday. And now there's fry there, there's fry there, there's fry there.
Yeah.
You know, so they're a really cool fish. And, you know, I got to be honest, I've never kept those, but I have kept some of the other multis in the past.
Yeah.
Years ago, though.
Yeah, multis are fun. I love shell dwellers. For those of you that maybe have, like, smaller tanks, planted aquariums, you don't really want to get into larger cichlids because it's sometimes more work with water changes and aggression and everything. If you get into some of these shell dwellers, they're super interesting as far as their personality, watching them behave.
Right.
They'll spawn for you, and you can keep them in small tanks. You could have them in as small as like a 10-gallon or a 15-gallon tank, And maybe 20 gallons is a little bit better for more space, but
yeah,
super fun. Super fun.
And I could see like a 40 breeder would be really cool for a colony.
40 breeder would, 40 breeder would be great. I've got some upstairs in that 60.
In the big, yeah.
So.
And by the way, Corey, if you're in there, I'm gonna need that piece of feather rock that's laying in your driveway, the big concave one.
Is that gonna be your?
I think that'll work in a 20.
There you go.
Great.
All right. Good. I got a question here about the black rams, and Gary's asking, did you bring black rams? So no, he didn't bring any fish down here.
I didn't bring any fish.
But are you still breeding the black rams?
Like crazy.
All right.
They're, you know, the whole pandemic thing has changed my breeding style a little bit.
Right.
So back when it started, all of a sudden you're stuck at home.
Yeah.
I couldn't travel. My wife lives in San Francisco.
Right.
A lot of you might not know that. She lives down here. She's the executive director of the San Francisco Ballet. So I was going back and forth a couple times a month from the Seattle area while we were deciding what we're going to do together. And we still have not figured that out because that all kind of got slowed down because of
pandemic. Yeah.
I mean, we were talking just the other day. It's like the last time we ate out was right before it started.
Yeah, that's right.
When Corey was down here.
Yeah, that's right.
It was about a week or so.
Yeah, we went to a place to get
biscuits and gravy.
Biscuits and gravy. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
The classics.
Yes.
So that has changed a lot. So I got going in my fish room up there, not being traveling, that all of a sudden I had such a glut of fry. And, you know, you could look at some of the videos on the co-op channel about that. I had so many, I had no place to put fry.
Right.
And so I literally, about April, May, maybe in a little bit in June, I stopped breeding fish because I had no room to put any fry.
Right.
And you know, and even though, I mean, a lot of my fry go to the aquarium co-op, even though that was happening, I had overproduced.
So then you're sitting with a bunch of fish and you nowhere to go.
Yeah, nowhere to go. They're getting bigger. They're getting fed, and so so I literally have not spawned the midnight rams since June. But I probably have sold, I don't know, close to 1,000 of them.
Right. Wow.
So I'm just now in the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've got 4 or 5 empty tanks. And it feels good.
Yeah.
It feels like, okay, I can start something now.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's why you're going to get some of these other fish from me.
Exactly.
Awesome. So Corey has a question. If you could travel anywhere in the world to see fish, where do you want to go? Now, I know you've done a lot of traveling around the world to see fish.
Yeah, but mostly in the wild, I've seen them in Peru.
So where would you like to go? Anywhere in the world?
You know, Brazil's still on the list.
Okay.
I think it would be fun to collect wild bettas.
Yes.
And none of this is in specific order.
Right. So Southeast Asia.
I also think it'd be kind of fun to collect Central American.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, some of the live bears and some of the bigger fish also.
Right. And some of those small little lakes that they've got. And secluded.
Obviously, Australia has been on my bucket list for 100 years. Well, I'm not quite 100 years old yet, but you know, it's still on the list. I think it would be amazing to go down there.
Yeah.
And then there's other places I would like to see fish.
Sure.
Germany. I want to meet and see German fish breeders.
Okay.
I mean, I have a lot of old written books that are in Germany that you just buy for the pictures because you can't read German.
Right.
So
I think I have one of those upstairs.
Probably
actually.
do. Yeah. I mean, great for reference for what these fish look like. So so those are some places.
Okay. I think for me it would be. Oh my gosh, we've got a large super chat there.
Nice.
That just kind of shook me there. We got a $500 super chat from Aquarium Co-op. So thanks,
awesome.
Corey, for that. We'll put that to some good use here on the channel. For me, it would be the Rift Lakes in Africa. I would love to go to East Africa and see all of these fish in the wild.
Yeah. Would you want to collect, or?
I wouldn't want to collect because most of the fish there are fish that we already can get.
Yeah.
But really just to see them in their natural environment because I've been so fascinated with African cichlids. I would love to go to both Lake Malawi and Lake Tanganyika if that's a possibility.
On the same trip, yeah.
On the same trip, right? You got to have lots of time.
Yeah.
And it obviously takes a long time to get there. But another reason is because I know that those lakes have had some issues, and you know, it may be something that you won't be able to do in the future. So I'd love to be able to take a trip out there and see that.
And I'm kind of the same thing. You know, the issue with bringing fish back for me is if I bring them back, I really feel obligated to try to breed them.
Yeah.
Not just to have them.
Yeah.
Because why did I take them from the wild, right?
Right.
So I really, you know, I have that issue. And the first trip I took to Peru, we brought back way too many. I'll be honest.
I remember that unboxing. Yeah, there was a lot of fish there that you brought back.
But I did end up spawning probably 30% of them. That's not a bad number.
That's good. That's good. Yeah.
And those discus now are just starting to produce young, and I've got, you know, 3.5-inch baby discus that are almost to second generation.
Yeah. That's awesome. F1s.
Yeah.
Got another super chat. Well, we've got a few super chats, but one from Bucket Boy asking about the mud skippers. Can we see the mud skippers? Not right now, but if you go to my channel after the stream, there's lots of videos, a lot of videos on the mud skippers where you can check them out there. And then I'll obviously be making more videos in the future. Another one from Peplin Creek Aquatics. Thank you for your super chat. When will we see some Dean merch? Right now he's sporting an Aquarium Co-op shirt. Me too.
Yeah.
But any Dean?
There's no plan for that right now, but I do have someone kind of working on a logo.
Okay.
So we'll see.
I want to see like your face. Like
I know everybody wants that.
That would be funny.
So going back to that one, the mud skipper tank. What if we maybe I'll get over here next week. I have a little bit of free time, and we'll do a full.
Yeah, we could do. We'll do a full fish room tour. We can do like an Instagram live thing or something like that. We'll show you.
We'll work on that.
Truth, fact, reality is asking how do you do water changes? Do you use a system? So I do water changes manually. I don't have an automated system. I would love to one day down the road, whether it's this room or some other fish room in the future if I move. So right now what I use submersible pumps. So I have a pump that I drop into the aquarium that's connected to a tube, and that runs right to the drain. So I can just drop the pump in there, plug it in, walk away, and it drains to a certain level. And then when I'm refilling, I have a hose that's connected to my sink, and I just pull the hose out and refill, temperature match, and then refill. So super easy, no buckets or anything. Just.
So you're not using the roll around garbage can anymore?
I have it
occasionally,
just out of convenience if I'm just draining into it, and then what I'll do is I'll just put the pump in the garbage can.
Got it.
So I'm still not doing buckets.
What happens when you have to gravel vacuum? Or do you do that very often?
Very rarely. And when I gravel vac, I vac into the garbage can.
Okay.
And then I
put the pump.
I put the pump in there. Yeah.
So looking at that, you know, you're basically saying that you don't have a system, but you do have a system.
Yeah. A manual system.
You figured out how to make it. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you know, like we're totally automating Corey's fish room.
Right.
Mine is semi-manual because I still have to turn the valves on and off.
Right.
You've definitely got a system that has come to work. So I think that's the biggest thing to come up with is when you're doing a water change, figure out a way where you can do it as quick and as efficient as you can so you can sit down in that chair and enjoy the fish.
Yeah, it's
right?
I've gotten to it where it's pretty. I've gotten it to be pretty optimized and very efficient with water changes to where my maintenance is only a few hours a week.
And the rest is enjoyment.
The rest is just enjoyment and feeding. So I would say, you know, I'm anywhere from 4 to at the most 7 hours a week.
That's not bad.
And the 7 hours is like water changes, feeding, moving fish around, tinkering.
Right.
Very easily it could be 4 hours a week.
Right.
And if you spread that out over 3 days, usually what I'll do is I'll listen to a live stream or music or something like a Aquarium Co-op live stream. They're usually a couple hours long. I'll pop that on a speaker and I'll kind of hang out in here for an hour, and then I'll finish the live stream on the next time that I'm down here tinkering. So makes the time go by. Any tips on breeding South American cichlids? The parents have eaten the babies for about a year now, and the babies die in a breeder box. So I don't know which fish those are.
So we don't know what fish they are, but basically if the parents are eating the fry constantly, then your only real choice is to try to raise them yourself. But South American cichlids, that could be a lot of different fish from, from apistos to discus, literally. So if they're dying in the breeder box, then you're probably talking about water quality issues, I think, or maybe not the right food. For me, baby brine shrimp is the food.
Right.
We got Zenzo hatching baby brine shrimp right around the corner.
Right around the corner.
There's a Zis breeder or a Zis blender, whatever you want to call those things. I got Corey hatching baby brine shrimp again.
Yep.
This took some work, but I do it every single day.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, well, baby brine shrimp aren't that nutritious. I don't know that it's so much about the nutrition as getting food going through that fish.
Right. Yeah, I think oftentimes when it comes to food, obviously you want food that's nutritious or has some nutritional value, just like us.
Right.
But a lot of times it's caloric intake.
Right.
And fish are growing, especially at that size, and I've talked about this in videos. When you think about baby fish need to be eating often, as much as possible,
way often,
high calories, because they're growing and they grow very fast for either their reproduction cycle to hurry up for the next season, or so that they're large enough to not get eaten, avoid predation.
Right.
So baby fish grow very quickly. Another thing that you might want to try that I've been kind of reading about and studying a little bit is mulm. So if you don't know what mulm is, it's kind of like that detritus kind of yucky stuff that you see on the bottom of tanks, or sometimes you'll see it like stuck on plants and stuff like that. A lot of fish will actually eat the mulm, or they'll eat little microorganisms that are in the mulm. So if you have your fry in a tank that's like super established with lots of plants and kind of decaying matter and detritus, they might do a lot better because there's other organisms that kind of hunt around and eat that you wouldn't normally see in the tank. So
right. And even in my fry system, I almost always put some Java moss in there, and it ends up collecting a lot of mulm.
It does.
Really quick, right?
Right. It's like
even if it's like the dead baby brine shrimp, because a lot of times the fry might just be picking off limbs off the brine shrimp.
Right.
Here's an arm, here's a leg, and the body dies, and that creates mulm.
Sure.
And then there's mulm creates bacteria creates protozoas, and it's just a cycle, and fish eat it. So who's calling me?
Is it Corey?
No.
Oh. All right, so another super chat here from Veronica V, #1 fan. Thank you. Super chat from T's Fish Tanks. Thank you. Super chat from Aaron Price. Nothing, just $19.99 super chat. So thank you very much.
Great.
Super chat from Kevin Leong, who says, "Love you, Dean. You're in SF. Dang, I live like an hour away, but on vacay and driving back late tonight." So yeah, so so Dean is down here. As you said, his wife lives here for work, and so he's kind of back and forth, or she goes back and forth depending on schedules.
Right.
And so sometimes you might want to check out the San Francisco fish stores. Sometimes Dean's known to pop into some of those stores, like Ocean Aquarium as an example, or 6th Avenue, and just kind of hanging out. So you may see him at a fish store. Some more questions here. Let me go scroll back. Can you guys talk about angelfish breeding and income? Now, I've never bred angelfish. I don't have any angelfish. Because you breed them and then there's 1,000 of them and everyone has them, and you go to the fish club and everyone's trying to sell their baby angelfish.
Right.
You're like, no interest. But you've done it.
I have. So literally, I could honestly say that I have built 2 or 3 fish rooms on angelfish alone.
Okay. That's a lot of angelfish because they prolific spawners. Yeah.
So, so the thing is, you could, literally 1 pair of angelfish. How many tanks do you have here? 29 or so?
In this room, I have 23, and then we've got, I think, 30 in total. So
okay.
Yeah.
So in 2 months' time, with a good pair of angelfish, with 1 good pair of angelfish, you could fill every tank with fry.
Right. I don't want that.
Okay. And I haven't quite done that extreme, But you could do that because angelfish will typically, once they get in a spawning cycle, you know, they're going to spawn every 7 to 10 days.
Right.
You're going to pull those eggs, you're going to hatch them, raise them, and there's one tank. Then you're going to pull the next batch next week, and there's another tank, and then another, and another, and another. And in 6 weeks, you've obviously got 6 tanks full.
Right.
In 12 weeks, you've got 12, not quite ready to sell yet.
So the problem is selling the fish.
Right.
And so,
right.
For those of you, so breeding fish is one thing, and
selling it is another.
Selling is a whole nother night. And I talked about this in a recent video about how to make money in the hobby, and there's different ways of doing it, and breeding fish is one of those. But I find that most people who breed fish, it's hard to offload the fish that you breed, and you usually don't get money for them unless you have some kind of arrangement. So most stores will do like credit, so you can trade it for food or whatever. I had an arrangement where I did get cash for them, but still it was like at wholesale prices. So it's a lot of work. And
it's a lot of work.
If you breed angelfish and you have 1,000 to get rid of, let's say if you were to fill this room with angelfish, you're driving all over Northern California to the stores to sell your angelfish, and that's.
Or you have to have a really good in with a wholesaler.
Right. Okay, and they can take them for you. And
so you got to remember, in the hobby, there's 3 or 4 levels. You've got the retail. You've got, if I'm selling it to a retailer, if I'm selling it to a wholesaler, everybody in the middle has to make some money.
Right.
Or it doesn't work. I mean, so, you know, you're not going to sell the angelfish for what you bought them for in the store.
No.
Don't even think about it.
No.
You know?
No. I mean, so even like African cichlids, and when you...
Any of them.
Yeah, so think about an African cichlid, and when you go to a store, you might see like a nice peacock for as cheap as $15 up to like $30.
Right.
They're paying $2 a fish.
Right.
And it takes you 6 months to sell a $2 fish. So you've got to make hundreds of them to make any money because you have to feed them and everything.
Right.
Bronx Bomber's asking, choose 3 filters to filter a 75-gallon in 2021. Thank you for your videos. So if it's me...
A what? 3 filters?
3 different type of filter types, I guess. So for one, I wouldn't have 3 filters in a 75.
No.
But to choose 3 different types, I would say... The first choice I would have is a sponge filter. Some people don't like sponge filters because of how they look. For me, it's my favorite filter by far because of ease of use and cost. So literally a $9 sponge filter can filter, you know, sometimes in some of these tanks I've got, you know, only one sponge filter and a 40-gallon breeder, and it's fine. And it's inexpensive. So that would be my number one. Hang on the back would probably be if I were going to go in the mechanical route or, you know, something plugged in. I would do a hang on the back because it's, again, pretty easy and also customizable with being able to put lots of different things in there. And then if I were to be complex, I would do a sump because I just love sump filters. People might want me to say canister filter, but I'm not a big fan of canisters personally.
Canisters work when nothing else will. So I've got, I don't know, 4 or 5 canisters running.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have to get psyched up to do the maintenance on them.
Yeah, me too. Sometimes it's a year.
You know, well, but okay, but think about it. A year is good.
Yeah.
Because that means it's filtering the water for a year.
Yeah.
So, but let's go back to the sponge.
Yep.
Every one of my filters, no matter what it is filtered through sponge.
Mm-hmm. Even if it's a
hang on back, it sponges. If it's canisters, it sponges.
Right.
You know, yeah, I might put some bio rings in there, whatever.
Yeah.
But the primary filtration material is sponge.
Is that sponge material?
If it's in the tank, you know, it's the sponge. I like how you layered that one, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Stacking them.
Yeah, stacking them.
So
yeah. So the other thing with sponges is, if you think about it, you got multi-tanks, you got one air pump, and it's running all the sponges.
That's right. Yeah, so down here in this room, I've got, I don't know, 40 to 50 different sponge filters. We have one air pump. It's
for the whole thing.
For the whole room. Now, I do have a couple canisters down here. I've got one on this peacock tank, and then I have the waterfall. And obviously, you can't replicate a waterfall with a sponge filter, but otherwise, that's it. Everything else is sponge filters. So, and as this filters, I've got a couple of those moving bed filters in here.
That's true. Yeah.
Bucket Boy is asking, will I ever consider a saltwater tank? I do have a saltwater tank. I'm not sure if it will show up on camera, but I've got one down here. Maybe I can tilt this up a little bit. Sorry for the technical pause here. But right down here, there is a saltwater tank. It's a Fowler tank. Fowler stands for fish only with live rock, so there's no corals, it's just fish and live rock.
Yeah.
Let's see here. We talked about the angelfish breeding. You got to catch back up here. I know I'm way behind on the chat, guys, so sorry.
Well, while you're catching up on the chat, you know, out there, I've learned this from several other people. We got to pay bills sometimes.
Yep.
Right? You have bills to pay?
Mm-hmm.
Do I have bills to pay? I don't know if I have bills to pay.
Yeah, you got to pay your taxes.
Okay, so remember to hit the like button.
Yes, thank you.
Hit the subscribe button, and there's something else they got to do. What is that?
Notification
bell. Hit that, and then share it with people. Share his channel with people.
Thank you. So thanks for that commercial. Actually, I was looking at some analytics this morning, and the notifications for my channel was like less than 1% of the total views. So hit that bell.
Hit the bell. It won't hurt you. It does nothing. You know, it might give you a little tickle in the butt once in a while. So.
All right, we got another super chat from here. We got Aaron Price, big nice $24.99 super chat. So thank you very much for that. You guys are super generous, and I always feel weird when people super chat me because I don't know. I like to do these videos. I love talking to all of you, and so I really appreciate the support. So Aaron says, Dean, Justin at Ocean Aquarium has been successful with no water change method for over 20 years. I know there's things you don't like. It works. So what do you like and what don't you, and why? Yes, he tops off, but change is minimal.
So I was just talking with Justin yesterday.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
I was just in there yesterday. I mean, his shop is literally not even 2 blocks from our apartment downtown. And I stop in there quite frequently. We have great conversations. I picked up some art.
Okay.
I want to take some fish home from there, but I'm not going to tell anybody what they are.
I actually just bought fish from him about 3 weeks ago.
Really? Nice.
Yeah, and I haven't shown them on his channel yet. They're
awesome.
Dean's seen them, but no one else has seen them.
And they're cool. So, they're going to be hard for you to film, I have a feeling.
They will. I'll have to set up a camera and then hide.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, maybe the GoPro underwater might work.
That might work. Yeah, that might work. That's a good idea.
Something to try.
Yeah, I'll try that.
They might get curious.
Yeah.
So, the no water change, you know, even if you talk to Justin, every time he nets fish out of there, he takes some water out.
Yep.
And then they replace that water. So there is a little bit of water change.
Right.
No, he doesn't go around with a hose and bucket and all of that. But he is also constantly, there's fish moving out of those tanks constantly.
Right.
He's using the deep bed gravel.
Yep, for the...
which, you know, I actually talked to him.
Nitrifying bacteria.
He learned that from his uncle, I believe.
Okay.
100 years ago. Now, when I say 100 years,
he's exaggerating, but decades ago.
Yeah,
right.
Decades ago. So a lot of this stuff in the hobby, you know, I mean, it used to be everybody used undergravel filters. They work fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
You stir up the gravel and the undergravel filter, your tank will be clear with a well-aged undergravel filter.
Right, right.
In 15 minutes.
Yeah, I used to only use undergravel filters
Me
back,
too.
20-something years ago. The other thing with water changes, because, you know, sometimes we get so wrapped up with doing water changes, and if you do cichlid tanks like some of mine, then you've got to do them like every week or so because of all the waste. But on some tanks, like my live bear tank back there in the back corner, sometimes I don't do water changes for like 3 months because the plants absorb all of the nitrates in there. So the tanks that I have with lots of plants in there, floating plants, planted plants, whatever, I do less water changes. And for me, when I'm doing the water changes, it might be because of clarity, or it might be because I want to add more minerals into the aquarium. So for Justin, when he's topping off, he's obviously putting new
and
minerals.
Also, if you think about it, I mean, I posted a couple pictures on my Instagram from some of his nano tanks. They are chocked full of plants.
Yes.
Right? So he's definitely got that going on.
There's more plants than anything.
Exactly. There's more plants than fish.
Yes.
So, you know, I mean, you're looking at, you know, different ways of doing things. In my tanks for raising fry, I'm trying to raise those fry as quick as I can. So they're getting like sometimes daily water changes. Yeah. And there's no plants floating around in there and stuff like that.
You're power feeding and everything.
Right. So it's different, you know, and it's going to be different for everybody.
So we got Taylor here from Simply Betta. I'm sure a lot of you know Taylor, a friend of ours, both Dean and I as well. Do we use Matin filters? So for those of you that don't know what a Matin filter is, think of like a sponge filter, but a wall. So a wall of sponge material. So like I know like Aquarium Co-op sells like those big 12 by 12 squares.
Yep.
So it's basically a wall of sponge that you would put in a portion of the tank, either like the back portion, a corner portion. You can make them kind of curve around, and you would have a pump or something behind it drawing water through the sponge and then having it come back over the top. I've never done them. I've seen them. I think they're very interesting. I've never messed with it because to me, I feel like a sponge filter does the same thing. Maybe it doesn't have as much surface area, or it doesn't have the ability to have as much like mulm and detritus and stuff that fish can kind of, you know, pick on. But the cleaning process to me is what kind of pushes me away from it, because I know that it can be quite messy when you're cleaning them, and you'll lose a lot of space in the aquarium because of the volume that the Matin takes. But how about you? Have you?
So I have them in almost all my tanks.
Okay.
Almost all of my breeding and fry raising tanks.
Right.
And I mean, like my whole rack of 10 gallons that are racked endwise, all have a Matin filter in them. But
are they bare bottom tanks?
yes.
Okay.
That's
so
that's the other
yes.
point I wanted to point out is I'm using them for a couple really good purposes, in my opinion. So if I go in that tank and take out my easy planter or my driftwood with a Anubias on it or whatever, then I can net every fish out of there without having to go around anything else.
Okay.
No heaters, no cables, nothing in the tank.
Right.
It's just 4 walls.
Yes.
So it makes it really easy. I also, they might get cleaned every 6 months.
Okay.
Very rarely.
Yeah.
And you can also do that with a sponge in the tank.
Yeah.
But again, you know, we're coming right back to the same thing. It's a sponge filter.
Yes.
You know? So my specific use for them is basically for ease. But there is no gravel. And that does make a big difference because gravel tends to get into the Matin, into the sponge, and then it becomes really harder to clean, and it gets worse and worse and worse over time.
Yeah, so I think for definitely the way you breed fish in your bare bottom tanks, it's very minimalistic. So it would make more sense. With me, I've got like rocks and decor, and it would be more of a hassle, I think. But you never know. I might try one. I like to do different things. I have a saltwater tank, but that's only filtered with a sponge filter.
There you go.
People think I'm nuts.
Yeah.
And that's all there's in there.
I mean, and going back to undergravel filters,
mm-hmm.
So I've done this. I've put actually sponge over the filter plates.
Okay. Yep.
And that's it. That's the substrate.
And did you ever? Oh.
So undergravel. So it's like a Matin filter going down.
Yeah. That is cool.
It didn't really work because when you do the water change, you get the micro bubbles. Then all of a sudden it's things floating up. But I've also done it with gravel on top of it too.
Right.
And that tended to work. But you know, we keep coming back to sponge for some reason.
Yeah.
Right?
You know what? Because so when you're talking about filtration, all you're trying to do is you're trying to move water through something. So that's what filtration does, is water is passing through something, and as that water passes through something, there's bacteria that lives on that object or in that object that basically break down the nitrite, the ammonia, etc., and they produce nitrate. So they're breaking down those harmful toxic waste products. So when you're passing water through a sponge, there's so much space for that bacteria to live, and water can pass through easily. And that's why when you look at different types of media, whether they're balls or K1 columnists or sponges or biorings, they all have some kind of porosity holes to allow that water to pass through. But sponges, it's the cheapest way of getting the most amount of beneficial bacteria.
And you can take it to your sink and clean it.
Yep.
Now,
and you can give it away.
Controversy there.
Okay.
Because a lot of people say, well, you can't really clean it in your sink. You have to clean it in a bucket of tank water.
Right.
I've done it in my sink for 100 years again, and I've never killed fish. So.
Now, what I will say is because you do live in Washington, I think your water is different.
I don't have chloramine. That is one thing. Yes,
right.
That's true.
So your water has a lower chlorine count also.
Very small. Yeah.
We're here. Our water in San Francisco, it will kill fish in minutes if you don't treat it.
Yeah.
So for me, when I'm refilling my aquariums, I actually put my dechlorinator in the water as I'm refilling.
Yep.
Because I tried it the other way where you refill, then you add, and I already see the fish are stressed. I've actually made mistakes in the past where I forgot to put dechlorinator in. I come back 2 hours later, the fish are all dead.
Wow.
So even like with 50% water change. So definitely.
So much for moving to San Francisco.
Well, you got to set up like a
Yeah.
RODI system or something like that for you.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, hi Taylor. We could talk about that some more later.
We were talking about Taylor the other day. So Taylor actually messaged me about sending me some worms. I think Taylor's going to send me some.
Oh, the little grindle worms?
White worms.
White worms, yeah.
Yeah. So
it'd be cool to get those going. I haven't done that for a while.
I've never tried them, so I'm gonna. When those come in the mail, we'll try those out.
Yep.
Dean, what do you think will be the best fish to breed this year?
The best fish to breed this year? So this is, I get this question a lot. You know, I've got a 20-gallon tank. What should I breed in there? I've got a 55. What should I breed in there? Well, to be honest with you, it's what do you want to breed?
Right.
I mean, not all of your fish are my favorite fish. Not
Right.
all of my fish are your favorite fish.
Right.
Yet, they're really cool to look at.
Yeah.
Right? So
yeah, you're never going to have a peacock tank, or I doubt it, right?
Probably
You've
won't.
been there, done that 100 times, right?
I've done it before. So, you know, if I'm to say, well, go breed German rams, and then a month from now you say, well, I went out and spent $200 on German blue rams, and they all died 3 times, so now I'm in $600, and it was your idea.
Right.
Well, you know, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But, you know, you have to find your own passion, what you want to breed. I mean, there's killie guys. We went on a trip with the Amazon where there's a killie guy who he would not even put his killie fish in the community fish room. He kept them all in his own little, barricaded in his own little cabin in the fish, in his on the boat. So, you know, I can't tell you what to breed.
Right.
I mean, I can tell you, I know there are fish that will always sell.
Right.
You know, I mean, angelfish will always sell. Guppies always sell.
Yeah.
Rams always sell.
Discus.
Corydorus always sell.
Yeah.
You know, there's fish that always sell. Even fish like bristlenose, plecos, they will always sell.
Yeah.
Now the difference is the dollar amount that you get for those fish.
Right. Right. And the amount of time it takes to make them sellable.
Right. And so from my perspective, a lot of times, like Corey's been working me to get into the Macintosh system of computers because I needed a new computer.
Team Apple here.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, that will cost me 300 angelfish.
Okay.
So in my mind, a lot of times, since I've been breeding fish for so long, I think in terms of, okay, that'll cost me this much. Or if I want to buy, say I want to buy a new tank for the fish room.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's 150 angelfish.
Right, right.
So sometimes I think of angelfish as a currency.
It's
almost.
a commodity.
Yeah.
Right.
But in my case, it kind of is.
It kind of is, right. And you have the ability to produce them when you want to.
Yeah.
I think for me, my answer would be the same. And I know the question was for Dean because he's the master breeder and I'm not. But I would say the same thing. Breed what you want to breed. Breed what makes you happy. And don't breed for any other reason.
Exactly.
Because if you're breeding to make money, it's just work. And then you're getting into all those other issues that we talked about. So I would say breed what makes you happy. Breed what you enjoy keeping because most likely you're going to have multiples of those tanks. Right. Otherwise, if you are trying to breed for profit, breed something that is going to be easily sold at a fair price and doesn't take too long to grow out.
Right.
Because some fish take a long time to get large enough to sell, and you're feeding them, and you have energy costs, water changes. By the time you sell a fish for $3, you might have spent $6 on that one fish.
Right.
So
exactly.
You're not really making any...
since Taylor was in here, thinking about breeding bettas.
Mm-hmm.
I've done that before.
Right.
I've never tried that yet.
So, how many jars do you have to have for the 500 males?
Right.
You know?
Right.
So, I mean, I'm sorry, Taylor, but I understand your pain because you have to have space for them.
Right.
And then you've got to feed, not one tank,
Right.
but
Everyone.
500 jars.
Yes. Yes.
So, and I've bred bettas before, and you know, it's actually breeding bettas was one of my first experiences in selling to aquarium co-op.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So I had bred these platinum white short-tailed bettas.
Mm-hmm.
So all of the fry are these really nice white, a little tiny bit of pink on some of the females, and they're all getting to be about 1 inch long.
Right.
And we know they're going to start fighting, right?
Yep. Yep. So you got to start separating them.
I go to Corey. I said, why don't you just take these small?
Right.
You know, sorry, Corey, but Corey knows this story. You know, it was one of our first things. I said, let's just make it work. You know, you sell them for whatever you need to sell them for. And I think he put them in, all of his tanks are 20s in the shop, and they were in there for over a year before they were all sold.
Because it took a while to...
Yeah, I mean, because I had like 500.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and that's the other thing is a lot of people when they breed fish,
Mm-hmm.
you know, rather than raising that whole spawn, they might not have the same success ratio.
Right.
They might end up with 50, and that's okay.
Right.
For me, you know, a spawn of 500, okay, that's good. You know,
Yeah.
so it's different.
Yeah. Tasha says, would love to see you join Corey and Dean in Peru and you film underwater there. That would actually be wonderful. We've talked about, you know, doing some trips. Obviously, you know, pandemic happened and that kind of changed everyone's plans. I know that Corey still has some aspirations of doing some traveling. I know Dean wants to as well.
Yep.
I've talked about it. Yeah, I would love to tag along. I think a South American trip would be fun. Might be a good way to start because it's kind of
we already kind of know.
Yeah, you know the system and it's a little closer-ish. Besides, like maybe collecting in Florida or something, which would be fun too.
Yeah.
So.
And I do agree that I think we would. It's hard to do underwater footage when you can't see in the water.
Right.
But and most rivers that we've seen in South America are very turbulent. Or that's not the right word. They have a lot of turbidity in them. So you can't really see more than 6 inches into the water. But I would love to do more underwater filming too.
Yeah.
I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, underwater. So I love water, obviously. I love swimming in the ocean, rivers, etc. This is kind of a phobia of mine. Is if I can't see, I don't like being in the water. Even in the ocean. Like if I'm in the ocean, obviously there's things in there that could eat me. But if I can see, I feel safe. I know that's stupid because I can't outswim anything in the ocean, besides a starfish maybe. But you know, nothing that could hurt me that's in the ocean is going to be slowed down. It's going to catch me if it wants to. Yeah. But I feel like if I see, I'm safe. And that's the one thing about the Amazon in South America is that water is there it's like tea.
You can't see the bottom.
See? So it kind of scares me a little bit, to be honest.
And you know, at the first, I've been down there 3 times now. The first trip, I went in, you know, I'm just bold and just go in with the guides and, you know, they're just jumping in there, right?
Right.
And then we're walking up this one little tiny tributary. It might have been only 12 feet wide.
Yep.
But it could be up to your waist deep.
Yeah.
And
you could have a caiman in there that could bite your foot off.
Well, we found a caiman with Corey, and even that was only about 2 foot wide.
Yeah.
But you know, we're carrying the metal nets.
Yep.
They have a metal handle, and someone is sticking their net down in the bottom, and zap.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay, that was the end for me. It's like
walk along the shore.
I'll walk on the shore.
Yeah.
Because we were actually looking for an electric eel.
Okay. Well, you found it.
We couldn't catch that one.
Right.
Because they just go in the mud so far.
Yeah.
We couldn't catch it. But you know, things like that, I agree. It tends to freak you out a little bit.
That does freak me out. So so I know people think like I'm a big tough guy, but when it comes to stuff like that, I'm out of the water. And I'm a great swimmer and everything, but if there's something that touches me underwater and I can't see it, even if it's harmless, I'm gonna freak out. Lauren Mitchell asks a question for Dean because she's trying to set up a auto water change system, kind of like Aquarium Co-op. Is how would you suggest adding pH buffers to an auto water change system if the tap pH is low?
I wouldn't add it to the system. I would add coral to the tank, or aragonite.
Aragonite, crushed coral. Yes,
crushed coral is my favorite for that because it tends to buffer it really good, and then work on getting your fish used to that water change. In my case, I'm the opposite. My pH is high.
Okay.
Comes out of my tap anywhere between 8.2 and maybe 8.6.
Right. It's like here. Yeah.
But and I still have to put coral in the tank to keep it from dropping to 5.
Right. Okay.
So because it's so soft. I mean, your water's really soft here too. So find a way where you're not adding chemicals. That's the worst thing for fish because it fluctuates so quick. Fish in nature, when it rains, they're getting fresh water.
Yes. And
that's changing their pH. They can tolerate that.
And rain it's like RO water. There's no minerals in there.
Right. It's pH 7 basically. So they can tolerate that as long as you come up with a regimen that works and have a buffer in the tank that works.
Right.
Going back to my Matin filters, behind the Matin, there's coral.
Bags of crushed coral and stuff like that.
Yeah. I don't even do bags. I just pour it in.
Okay.
Because I clean those tanks so often, or so unoften.
Right.
That when I do, I just take it all out, dump it.
Right.
I take the Matin filter outside with the hose and clean it. And set the tank back up.
Yeah. So I'm in the same camp when it comes to numbers. Chasing numbers
that's hard.
It gets really difficult, and I do use buffers and salts and things like that, and I get them for free. Thank you, Fritz. Plug. So it's a little easier for me to keep up with that. But basically, I think being consistent is more important.
I do
so if you're setting up an auto water change system, and if you watch the Aquarium Co-op one and you want to do something similar, do that. And you could add crushed coral, and it does, retain the pH that you have there.
I mean, it's not. I mean, your pH will fluctuate a little bit, but it's not so drastic that the fish are just going to die.
Right. And usually, if they do, there's something else going on.
Yeah,
there's something else going on. So, let's see here. Let me see if get caught up on the chat. We got another super chat from Weldon Tanks, so thank you.
Nice.
He says, glad to see Dean back in the fish room. Enjoy the insight that we both share. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Florin12345 says, does Dean have any experience with breeding Hemichromis exul? I don't know what that fish is.
Is that like a tetra? Can we Google that?
I can't. You could, because we've got you could do it from your phone. I don't know what that fish is unless
what is that fish?
Someone in the chat, and I'd have to open up a window.
I'm like good with common names.
I'm terrible on the Latin names unless it's something like I don't know. I'm not good with the Latin names, the genus names. Common names is. I think Corey's really good at the Latin names, and when you say one to him, he kind of knows what it is, but me not so much. So while Dean's looking for that fish, Simply Betta, who's the #2 fan because Veronica V was the #1 fan, she says those acoustic blankets are working. It doesn't sound like a fish room. So if you look at my walls, everybody, these black walls are acoustic blankets.
Jewel cichlids, of course.
Yeah, we've got some.
Yeah,
we've got the Hemichromis. I forgot the name of them. The 5-star generals.
5-star generals. They're really cool. They'll breed for you.
Yeah.
Just feed them well. Put them in a tank that's big enough. I tend not to do ditherfish because they will kill them.
They will kill the ditherfish. In fact, I've got I forgot what Hemichromis is, but
it's the
5-star general ones is what
really
I have.
Cool fish.
And I had the Congo tetras with them, and the Congo tetras were big, almost the same size, and they're all hiding in the corner.
Right.
So the best way to breed them would be to have a pair and leave them alone with no other fish because they'll be super aggressive towards them.
My opinion is start with a group of 6
and let them pair.
Let them pair off. Take the other 4 out. Take the other 4 out. That's always my opinion. Is start with a group rather than don't go buy a pair.
Right. You're usually disappointed when you buy a pair.
Yeah.
So back to the walls. These are acoustic blankets that are designed to obviously reduce sound waves from bouncing around.
Right.
They also do a great job of insulation. They're super heavy. And so Corey purchased all these for this fish room, and so we hung them up, and they do a great job. And I think Taylor had asked about them, so maybe, I don't know, Taylor, if you have them up now in your fish room, but yes, they do a wonderful job.
I have news for you. Taylor doesn't have a fish room.
Oh, I thought she's setting up a new one, no?
I hope so.
Okay, so I'm confused, Taylor, because I know you took down your old fish room. Not sure if you have a new fish room going. I thought I saw, unless that's old footage, but I saw you doing some stuff. All right, so Corey had the answer for us before we were looking.
Yeah, there you go. Of course he did.
All right, let's see here. Let's see for more questions. It's hard to find the questions here unless you guys put the @Tazawa Tanks.
Right.
Let's see here. This is probably the hardest part of live stream, is because we could just talk about anything, but it's hard to find. All right, so here's a super chat from Sound Pitch Black. It says, we need an aquarium co-op Dean's signature products. Great job, guys. Get some food tonight.
So I was just telling Corey about that the
like
other
a Dean's
day.
brand?
Yeah, like a master breeder line.
Okay, that's kind of cool.
So we might work on that.
All right,
we'll see.
I would definitely shop for some of those products.
Or even a tab on the order page where I can pick the products
like Dean's favorites.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
that's a good idea too, because then it's like, well, what would be knowing what Aquarium Co-op covers, it carries as far as their products, and you've been in the warehouse.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite items on the website?
So, okay, so it's different from a keeper or a breeder perspective. Which do you want?
Keeper.
Okay, so from a keeper perspective, you're talking about things like the Easy Planter.
Yep.
That's a great product.
Yep.
Now,
we got some of those down here.
Here's a weird thing is about 4 or 5 years ago, I'm going to guess it's about 4 or 5 years ago, I pick up junk every so often at the GSAS auctions. That's our current club, right?
Yep, Seattle, Greater Seattle.
And I had picked these planter things up where it was made out of some sort of plastic material where you could put the pots in and it fits. Turns out that was an early prototype.
Okay.
From, I think, Corey.
Huh.
But the Easy Planter is the finished product now that works really well.
Those are cool. Great way to have plants in an African cichlid tank or a tank that fish are hard on plants.
Right.
Is that Easy Planter.
They can't dig them out.
They can't dig it out.
Right. Let's see, some other products is their T-shirts.
All right, yep. Or the models here. Yeah. The hat.
The hat. Fish room wise, I love most all of the Extreme Foods.
Yes.
Especially the nano pellets.
Okay, yep.
Oh, and Extreme. If you're listening to this, the next size up from nano pellets, I think they call them
the community Pee-wee pellet or whatever.
Yeah, make those with the same formula as the nano pellets. Don't switch the formula. Make them the same, and you can name them Dean's pellets. They work really well.
So because we're sponsored by Extreme here, I've got all the foods. So this is the nano,
right?
Which is super, super tiny. They're like little granules almost.
And you love those, right?
I love all these. Yeah. And then this is their community Pee-wee, which is basically a smaller pellet that's 1.5 millimeters.
Right. I want them all made with the nano formula. Because
so I will share that Extreme wonderful fish foods. I've been using them for quite a while. I know you've been using them. Corey's been using them. Was seeing some of the African cichlid wholesalers. They're using it.
Yep.
They actually sent me some new food that's not available on the market. They're testing it. They sent me a bunch to test. I got it yesterday. I've been feeding it. I'm super excited when it comes out.
Everything ate it.
Yeah, so we can't say what it is yet.
Nope.
But if it works, then it's going to be a whole nother level as far as another really good food. Maybe I'll send some home with you to try.
Maybe,
yeah.
So this one's going to be for you.
Which one here? Any plants you guys can recommend for African cichlids?
We were talking about this just earlier.
Yeah. So I would say With African cichlids, it depends on the type of African cichlid because you have basically there's kind of three main types. We've got the Mbuna, you've got peacocks and haps together, and then you have like your other, which would be like your Tanganyikans, your Lake Victorians. The other, pretty easy because they're not too hard on plants. They don't dig them up very much unless it's like a shell dweller or something, so you could do lots of different plants with those. Mbuna is more difficult because they are more on the herbivore side, so they will eat some plants. So anything that's difficult for them to get at or doesn't taste good or the texture's off. So hornwort is great as a floating plant. Java fern works well. Java moss works well. Anubias will work well if it's established. So I would say for African cichlids, if you have some of the larger ones, you want them to be established. So like if you do have Java fern in that tank, make sure that Java fern is nice and big and is grown out and is attached to the rock or wood or whatever, so that it doesn't get bothered too much. Same thing with Anubias. If it's in there and established, it'll do well. Floating plants do well if it's something that they won't eat. So you've seen me do like hornwort and stuff before.
Yeah. Yep.
I would also say that with the Easy Planter, you can do things like Vallisneria. I've got some growing in an Easy Planter there. Same thing though, it has to be established and growing well before you introduce the fish, because usually if you do it that way, you have more success. If you try to plant something with the fish already in there, you're going to have a tougher time.
Right.
All right, another one here. Dean, have you ever been to Colombia before?
Not yet, but you know, I'm not really into illegal drugs and stuff and getting shot. But actually,
that is something to consider. Certain countries are dangerous.
I
right?
mean, even when we were in Peru, on the what I call the mountain trip in the Puerto Maldonado area, we had to be careful on some of the roads we went on where we ran into illegal gold miners.
Oh,
and you don't want to do that. You want to stay away from them, let them do their thing.
Right.
We're just collecting fish, and you know, so you do have to be careful that way. Colombia is actually one of the areas that I think would be really cool to visit.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of very cool fish come out of Colombia. There's also a lot of smuggling of fish that comes out of Colombia.
Okay.
That is actually detrimental to our hobby.
Right, right.
So, there's, but you know, I would love to go there.
A couple questions for me. Do I ship any fish? No. I've shipped fish before with about a 50% success rate. Even the last time I tried to ship fish I shipped some to Dean, and they were a fish that you really wanted.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
But UPS dropped the ball, and they were supposed to be there a certain day, and then
it was like 3 or 4 days later.
3 or 4 days later, and they didn't make it. So
and it's really tough right now. I mean, shipments are being held everywhere.
I'm not a fan of shipping fish personally. Aquashella, yes, I will be at Aquashella. In fact, I'm actually speaking at Aquashella in June in Orlando, and I plan on going to all of the Aquashella events. Jeremy's asking, was thinking about stocking a 40-gallon breeder with Corridoras and Rams. Any thoughts on it, and how many should I do? So,
that'd be perfect.
That's a good, Go ahead.
I would say, you know, if your goal is just to have the fish, easily a dozen Corridoras, because then you get kind of that schooling effect, which is very cool. All the same size, all the same type of Corries.
Yes.
And then the Rams, you could easily do 6 or 8 in there, and they will set up their territories. In the old days, I used to do Rams in a 40 breeder. I would colony breed them. So
Will they survive the fry?
No, I would be pulling all the eggs.
Okay.
So what I would do is, this is just to bump my numbers up for resale.
Right.
So I would put little tiny flower pots, like 2-inch flower pots, 8 or 10 of them in there, all facing away from each other.
Okay.
And then I would put like 8 or 10 females, 4 or 5 males, do some good feeding and water changes, and all of a sudden you have 8 or 10 flower pots full of eggs.
And then you just...
So then you got, literally, if you pull all those out and hatch them...
You put them in 8 different tanks.
No, you do them all in one tank.
Oh, that's true. All the fry,
So it did make sense, yeah.
JDM Gino saying, I heard that bacteria in a bottle really doesn't work. and that it was tested and that black soil cycles a tank faster. I don't know anything about black soil cycling a tank faster. I would say that some of the bottled bacterias are better than others.
Much better. Yeah.
So I have some where when you open the bottle, you can smell it. You have to keep it in the refrigerator. When it was shipped to me, it was shipped in a big crate with dry ice.
Yep.
And I keep it refrigerated so that bacteria stays viable, essentially.
Yeah, basically.
I wouldn't use it as an instant cycle. I would say that it aids the cycle. So it kind of gives it a little bit of a jump start or a boost in order to get that bacteria established. So if you're setting up a brand new tank and you put that stuff in there, it will help in getting things. It might accelerate the cycle process faster, but you're still going to have to, test and make sure that everything's proper before you add fish. So I wouldn't just rely on it solely. The best thing to do is to get bacteria from another tank. So for me, like I keep extra sponge material. We talked about sponges.
Right.
I keep extra sponge filters in a sump upstairs. So I can set up a tank instantly. If I set up an extra 20-gallon tank, I just take a sponge from one tank, put it in there, and it's ready to go.
I'm the exact same way.
Yeah.
And I have used some of the instant bacteria stuff. I don't want to call it a crutch, but it's almost like adding an accessory.
Right.
So it's just it might help, it might not.
Yeah, I'm similar. I kind of look at it like so like for me, here's an example. So I work out, I lift a lot of weights, and a big part of working out is eating. So I make sure that I'm eating all the time, eating quality foods, but I like to get a little boost of protein, so I'll drink a protein drink. So I'm still getting protein from the fish and everything, the chicken, but sometimes I need a little bit of extra boost of protein, so I take that protein powder as a drink. Here's a question for Dean, but this is probably more of a Corey question because it's about easy green and plants. But he's asking about adding potassium for his Java Fern. He already uses easy green and easy iron, but it's not enough for as many as he has. I would think that for Java Fern, because Java Fern is a water column feeder, the easy green would probably be all that it needs.
Or maybe a little bit of Epsom salt magnesium.
With that,
maybe.
Yeah.
But I'm not the plant guy.
Yeah, I'm not the plant guy either. I can keep plants alive, and in fact, I think I have plants in every tank except for
one or two,
saltwater and brackish water. So every tank that has fresh water has plants, but not the plant expert like Corey would be, obviously.
Right.
So we'll take a couple more questions here before we sign off. Tyler's asking, any suggestions on finding hardscape for aquariums having trouble finding good rocks? I go to the local fish stores. I just go to the fish stores, and sometimes they have good stuff and sometimes they don't. So you kind of have to go there with like a hunting mentality where maybe you'll find some good stuff and maybe you won't. You might have to go to 2 or 3 stores to find something. I know that some people sell it online, so that's a good place to go as well. Collecting rocks in the wild, I've done before, but not enough to recommend it because you don't know what you're getting sometimes.
Yeah. I think if you're pulling them out of a clear stream, creek, whatever, that would be okay. A lot of people say don't boil them. Well, you don't have to boil them. There's other ways of killing everything on them. You could also go to local nursery or quarries, the quarry rock.
Yep.
If you're worried a little bit about is that rock safe or not, take a little bottle of white vinegar with you.
Right.
And they're not going to care if you pour white vinegar on the rock.
Right.
It's not going to hurt anything.
Yeah,
but if it fizzes or foams, you're not going to take that rock.
Right.
If it just pours on, then it's usually safe for an aquarium.
Yep. Good point. In fact, a lot of the rocks in this tank, which you guys can't see, I got them at Home Depot. So I went to the gardening center and grabbed a couple bags of their river rock, basically, and it's used for landscaping.
River rocks are almost always safe.
Yeah. So one more question here I'll ask, and this one's kind of a funny one. So Andrew Gaming is asking, he just got a 75-gallon tank, and I need some input on stocking. Oh, that's not the one. I'm sorry. Well, we'll do 2 more here. So there's that one. He wants some. Okay, well, we'll do this one because I saw another one that was very similar that said, someone asked about they just got a 75-gallon tank and what fish should you put in there. I always say, don't worry about what other people want. Do what you want. Obviously, you want to do your research and make sure that the fish that you are getting is suitable for that tank. So you're not going to put an arowana or a bass in a 75-gallon tank because it's going to be too small. But do what you want to do as far as keeping fish, and also think about what aesthetic you're going for. So sometimes I like to think about the hardscape or the planted situation before I think about the fish. Mm-hmm. So sometimes when I set up a tank, and I did this years ago when I set up a 75-gallon Mbuna tank with I made a wall with all these caves, and I had been planning this since like 1999 in my head, and I finally built it like in 2015 or something. So I had the idea of the scape before the fish. Yep. And so with cichlids, if you're looking for a certain kind of African cichlid, think about what kind of look you're going for before you, and then say, okay, I want lots of rocks and hiding places and caves. Then think about what African cichlids would do well with that. Or I want lots of blues and yellows. Then think about what fish might be suitable for that. Or I want just a big open thing with all different colors. People ask me all the time about stocking lists for cichlids, and they'll send me their list of like, I'm going to get 2 of these and 2 of those, and I'm going to get a Z-Rock and a Red Empress, and I'm like, just get what you want and do what you love, and that's the most important thing. So with that, we'll kind of close it there. Again, thank you to all of you that were gracious enough to super chat, but then also thank you all for your time today and hanging out with Dean and I. Big thank you to Corey for that ginormous $500 super chat that's still sitting there. Let's see what he said on that super chat here. He said, here's some support. Make sure you guys eat well and get into some fishy trouble. Don't forget to film so the fans can see. So so we do plan on doing some filming. Maybe a little bit today, but probably more next week before Dean goes back. We'll probably go to a fish store or two. And probably do some stuff in here, and some more to come. So any last things for you?
No, so just, like I always try to tell myself, it's Saturday, right?
Today is Saturday.
Today's Saturday, so it's a good day to work in your fish room, and just remember that, getting started is half done. Yep. Every little project. I mean, I tell myself that, you do that. Like we were talking earlier about cleaning canister filters. Yeah. Man, you just got to get started. Yes. And then it's done.
I don't like cleaning canister filters, and so, I'm notorious for letting them sit. But yeah.
So have a good weekend. Have a good rest of the weekend, and enjoy your fish. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah, and thanks, Lonnie. Just saw that last super chat. Have a great one, everyone. Take care. Now I gotta walk down here and turn the thing off this way.
Cheers.